Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. What are the implications and consequences of Rishi Sunak appointing David Cameron, a predecessor of his as British Prime Minister, as the country's new Foreign Secretary? That's the key issue I shall discuss today with Britain's Deputy Foreign Secretary and one of the Conservative Party's most long-standing MPs, Andrew Mitchell. Andrew Mitchell, let me start with comments made by Suella Braverman in her resignation letter to Rishi Sunak. She called him uncertain, weak, and lacking in the qualities of leadership that this country needs. She added, "Your plan is not working. We have endured record election defeats. Your resets have failed. You need to change course urgently." That is a damning indictment of the Prime Minister by someone he brought back after she'd been sacked as Home Secretary.
Well, good day, Karen, and it's a great privilege and pleasure to be back on The Wire. I think when you look at resignation letters, they are often written in the heat of the moment. They often reflect a certain pain and disappointment, and I think this resignation letter should be seen in that context.
In other words, her comments no longer matter, no longer count, they're written in peak.
Well, you'll have seen the comments in the UK. Suella Braverman is a friend of mine. She used to come on my Africa project in Rwanda. I know her very well. I've been in the position of resigning from the government in the past. You know the human emotion in all of this sort of thing. And I think that's why I say it should be seen in that context.
Let's then come to David Cameron. Now, the last time a former Prime Minister was appointed Foreign Secretary happened, I believe, in 1971 when Alec Douglas-Home served under Edward Heath. But I'm told that overall it's happened 15 times in British history. Nonetheless, how unusual is this and how much of a surprise was it for the Conservative Party?
Well, I think it was a surprise, but a wonderful surprise. And the reason I say that is that there is a strong precedent for it. The precedent is not only that a former Prime Minister serves in the cabinet of his successor or one of his successors, but also that the Foreign Secretary is in the Lords. And during my political lifetime, you and I are old enough just about to remember Sir Alec Douglas-Home, Lord Home, doing it, but also Lord Carrington, a very distinguished British Foreign Secretary, doing it from the Lords. And the key point here is this, that you've now got as head of Britain's Foreign Service, as the Foreign Secretary, someone who was Prime Minister relatively recently for 6 years, was leader of his party in opposition and in government for 11 years. So that is, by any definition, a very big figure. And everyone in the British House of Commons, regardless of where they sit, should be very pleased that British foreign policy will now be being led by someone of such very considerable experience. And it's in that context that I think wherever you sit in British politics, it should be widely welcomed. And I think that already we are seeing the impact that having a former Prime Minister as the Foreign Secretary brings to the task in terms of his relationships with very senior figures across the world, and also the depth of his experience.
I hear what you're saying, but let me remind you that the newspapers have been nowhere near as complimentary. The Financial Times in its leader said this was, and I'm quoting, a last gasp of the party that is out of ideas. Rob Watson on the BBC said this was like arranging the deck chairs on the deck of the Titanic as the ship continues to sink.
Well, it's always a very risky business to predict the results of the next general election in Britain. I was a young MP in 1992 when everyone said that the government would not be re-elected, and it was. So I think one must be careful about analogies with the Titanic. But the facts are the facts, and it's clear now that there is a very big beast running British foreign policy. For example, he knows Prime Minister Modi very well. He knows the Americans right up to the President Biden very well. This is a very big figure running British foreign policy. And behind all the flumery of media comment, I think you will find a satisfaction about that here in Britain.
Let me pick up on your phrase. You described him probably correctly as a very big beast. The problem is, does this very big beast overshadow the Prime Minister? David Cameron is internationally a lot better known. He served as Prime Minister for a far longer time than Rishi Sunak has or may ever do. Therefore, will he overshadow the Prime Minister?
No, I think it's an incredibly skillful move, and one that everyone should welcome. They work extremely well together. At his first return meeting of the cabinet, David Cameron made it clear that he was a team player. He was bringing his experience and his knowledge to the benefit of a team that he was delighted to serve in. And he will, I know, serve Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister with both confidence and also give him very good advice.
What about the baggage that Cameron carries? He had a very definitive, close relationship with China. That is not the case any longer as far as Britain is concerned. Will you therefore be tempted under him to go back to the relationship as it used to be? And secondly, he also carries allegations of lobbying. Is that going to be an impediment or a question of image for the government?
No, I don't think so. But the China policy is relevant. But things move on. The position now internationally and with China is very different from what it was when I was in government before and David Cameron was our Prime Minister. So we adapt to changed circumstances. But, you know, you can't run a foreign policy which just cuts off a major power like China. We agree on some things, we disagree on others. The importance is to have a strong and honest and open relationship. And you've seen that in the meetings that have taken place in the last day or so between President Xi and President Biden. That's how mature countries work together. So what we want is a relationship which is open and is clear, where we are honest with each other about where we agree and where we disagree. And David Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, is in a very strong position to do that now with the changed circumstance because of the strong relationship he had with China before.
Two quick questions before I let you go, Mr. Mitchell. As you know, probably better than anyone else, a free trade agreement between India and Britain is hanging in the balance. It was supposed to have been signed and concluded last year at Diwali. It didn't happen. There's a very good chance it's not likely to happen this year at all. There are only 6 weeks left before the year ends. Our Foreign Minister, Jay Shankar, was in London till yesterday evening. He met up with Mr. Cameron. He met up with your Home Secretary, the new one, as well as your National Security Advisor. Do you believe that under Mr. Cameron, this FTA will be concluded before India goes to elections, May 2024?
Well, nothing is done till it's done. But the first international statesman that David Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, saw was the Indian Foreign Minister. And it was an extremely good meeting. And we must all be optimistic that these two important powers will be able to conclude a free trade agreement, because if they do, it will be very good, not just for India and the United Kingdom, but much more widely than that.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances you'll have an agreement before Modi faces elections in May next year? Is it under 5 or above 5?
I'm not in the business of giving odds like that. We're all working towards an excellent free trade agreement, and an excellent free trade agreement is one which both sides can embrace and think is in their own interests as well as the interests of the other party. And I'm increasingly confident that we will be able to achieve that.
Increasingly confident that you can achieve it before Modi faces elections next year?
I don't want to put a timescale on it, but we are all working towards achieving exactly that.
My last question. The BBC particularly noticed the language you used when you stood up in the House of Commons, presumably on behalf of David Cameron, and they said that you were speaking as Deputy Foreign Minister on the Hamas-Israel war issue. It's the language you used that was particularly striking. According to the BBC, you spoke about the appalling loss of life. You said every civilian death is heartbreaking. You said it's impossible to comprehend the pain and loss innocent Palestinians are enduring. And then you added, too many civilians are losing their lives. And many people would say this is a marked change in language, a marked recognition of the trauma that the Palestinians are going through compared to what your government was saying just days or weeks earlier. Has there been a change in the British attitude to the war now that the killings of civilians in Palestine and in Gaza in particular have gone up so horrifically?
There's no change in the British government's policy. The British government's policy is that Israel has an absolute right to self-defense. But what you were hearing from me in the House of Commons was the, I hope, natural reaction of any humanitarian to the loss of innocent civilian life. And that is why Britain has always been clear that while Israel has the right to self-defense, it's also important to respect international humanitarian law. And I would remind you that Israel suffered the most devastating, terrible, murderous terrorist attack on October the 7th. It was the worst loss of Jewish life in any one day since the end of the Second World War and the Holocaust. It was a pogrom. And it's interesting to note, too, that the Israeli Defense Force defends Israeli citizens from terror and murder, whereas Hamas use their own citizens to defend Hamas. And it's a sharp difference which needs to be understood. And the words you were hearing in the House of Commons, to which you referred, were the words that I hope any of us would make about the loss of innocent civilian life.
Except for the fact, Mr. Mitchell, that you were the first British minister, particularly now speaking as Deputy Foreign Minister, to use these words. James Cleverly, when he was Foreign Secretary, just 24 hours before you spoke, never once spoke in this manner. You were the first to do so, which is why, and I'm now quoting the BBC, people felt that there was a significant change in Britain's language, in Britain's attitude reflected through that language. I'm simply asking you, is that in fact the case, or was this language accidental?
No language in the House of Commons should be accidental. I was stating the position of the government, but the metrics to which you referred have not changed. Israel has an absolute right to self-defense in these appalling circumstances, but that all innocent loss of civilian life is regrettable. And those were the positions that were set out by the Prime Minister in his speech at the Mansion House on Monday night. And they are the positions of the British government.
Thank you very much. Question about you. Do you look forward to standing in regularly on behalf of the
Karen, we're over time. I've got to go. We're over time. You've got the end there. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay. All day.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.